In this video, we're going to add simple tests to our state machine to ensure that everything is running as expected. We're going to talk a bit about debugging our state machine and new systems. I invite you to go to the 2D workspace so that we can add UI elements there for debugging. And I'm going to show you one way to debug your work that is a little more flexible than printing to the output consoles using the print function. We're going to add a label under our game node. So add label. And with the layout menu, we're going to center it on the screen. Then press Control Alt, click and drag. So first you have to click the handle, then Control Alt, click and drag to resize it. And I'm going to center the text in the inspector. Let's add some default text. You can see that it's really small by default, so we're going to add a larger font. Go down to the custom fonts category, click the empty font slot and add a new dynamic font. Once you expand it, in the settings and the font, you can set the size of the text and add a font in there. Go to the Assets folder, Fonts, to get the Montserrat font, and click and drag it in the font data slot. And we're going to increase the size to, I'll set it to 32 here. All right, this is just so that we can have some text on the screen. In the context of a larger project, these kinds of things, labels, etc., you can save them in advance, use a UI theme, so you don't have to do these extra steps. I just want to show that it's useful to have labels to debug information on the screen. Now we are going to add a script to our label. So click the new script here, option, and we're going to make it built-in. It means that it will be saved in the current scene. It's a script that we will trash as soon as we are done with our testing. So I'm going to create that inside the scene, and we're just going to create a function, a callback, to update the label when we change the state from the state machine. We can use the signal on the state machine. So select the state machine node, go to the node tab, and double-click the transition signal. Then click on the label to connect the state machine to the label. And so every time we get the state machine's new state path, we can print that to the screen. So we can say text is equal to state path, and that should be it. Another thing that you can do in those kinds of cases, if you want to print more information from the state machine, you can, in the label script, do a dirty get node to get the state machine in an onReady variable. So state machine, type state machine, and we're going to get node, go up with the 2 dots, / state machine. You can get nodes that way, although it's not recommended at all. It's good for prototyping or when you are making throwaway tests like this one. Now the thing is, we don't have any state to see these transitions at the moment. So I'm going to set the run and move states so that they are next to one another and rename move to idle. And we're going to create our first actual states. So with idle at the top. Now to create a new extended script on the idle node, I'm going to right click on it and select extend script. It will extend the state class by default, and I want it to be built in as well. Click create to create a new script that extends state, and there all we will do is change the state to the run state, transition to the run state when we press a key. So I'm going to create the function unhandled input. Remember that it's like the unhandled input callback, but without the leading underscore. And then we want to check if a certain key is pressed. So if event.isAction pressed, we're going to use UI accept. This is the enter key. And in that case, we're going to get the state machine and call transition to followed by the path to the state, in that case, run. And we need to do one last thing, is to get the tree and set the input as handled. Set input as handled, like so, which will prevent the input event to propagate to the rest of the nodes in the project. I'm going to copy that because we're going to have something similar for the run state. So right click and extend the state script. Once again, create a built-in script. Sometimes you will have to save the scene before you can click to open the new script. So I'm on the run state script here. I'm going to paste the code in there. And this time, when we press UI accept, I'm going to transition to idle. And that is it. If you press F5 and play again, when you press enter, you should see the state change every time. All right, so labels are nice tools if you want to debug some information in your game. You can create reusable nodes that you can drop in any level or anywhere to debug information to the screen. Now, there's a more elaborate way or an approach that will give you more details, that is using breakpoints and the debugger. So I'm going to go to the state machine now, and I'm going to add breakpoints. So I'll expand the script editor, close the other tabs, save everything, and you can place your cursor on any line and press F9 to toggle this line to a breakpoint. You will see a red square for any breakpoint in your script. You can also click the left side of the margin of your script to set breakpoints on and off. Breakpoints are lines in your code where the GTScript compiler will stop every time it's running that line, and it will give you the current state of the object at that point. So let's say every time we enter the state, we want to have a breakpoint. The GTScript compiler will play the code up until that line, and it will stop right before that line. So let's see what's happening. Well, I'm going to play the game, and when I press enter, it's going to call the transition to function and stop right before we enter the new state. So let's expand the bottom panel now, and you can see first the stack frames. You can trace back to the script that called the function. It started from the state machine's unhandled input function. Then from that, it called the unhandled input from the state. So it says it's in the game scene right now, but it's on the state node. And finally, that unhandled input from the state node called transition to on statemachine.gd. And on the right side, you can see the variables of your state machine object at this state. So you will see that the state machine itself is the object with the ID 1190, and the state is a different object that you can click to open it in the inspector. And if we look on the right side to the path, you'll see that this is the run state, as expected. The first time we press enter, we go from the idle state to the run state with our code. Another thing is that you will see the state name here, the state name variable, that gets updated every time we update the state. So we're using that for debugging purposes, so you can see it instantly. And so that if you have a label like this one that subscribes to state changes in the state machine, it could display the state's name using that variable. Whenever you want to inspect some code anywhere, see that it runs, you can press the F9 key with the cursor over that given line. Also, when you are playing the game and you reach a breakpoint, like here in the ready function, when we first enter the state, you can press the F7 key, or you can go use the buttons at the bottom here to continue executing. The icon in the top right is for that. And you can press F7 or F12, it seems. Yes, you can press the F12 key as well. But with that, I'm going to remove that breakpoint, and with our state machine done, I'm going to delete these nodes from the game scene. We really don't need them. Save. I'm going to kill all the scripts, and we can get started working on our character in the next chapter. See you there.